Our first blade opens a mystery reaching 1,000 years forward. Valencia, 1994, in the old city center. Archaeologists are dismantling a house foundation, routine work, the kind that happens about 10 times a year. Then the shovel hits metal. They dig further and find a sword driven straight down into the earth, point first, as if someone planted it there on purpose and walked away. One of the crew couldn't help himself. Excalibur, he joked. The nickname stuck for 30 years. They shelved it, unsure of its age or origin, until Valencia decided to recatalogue its entire collection. Archaeologist José Miguel Osuna finally examined it properly and traced the metalwork to the 10th century, the era of Arab rule in Spain, a cavalry sword, bronze-decorated hilt, a type otherwise known from only one other site near Cordoba. Why was it buried upright? A ritual, a farewell, a marker, nobody can prove it now. Now Norway, and this discovery was made by hands barely 6 years old. Southern Norway, a field near the town of Brandbo. A first-grade class is out collecting stones for handicrafts. 6-year-old Henrik digs looking for a better rock and hits something else entirely, a corroded metal shape rising out of the mud. He tries bending it, thinking it's junk, then simply tells his teacher, worried a tractor tire might get punctured later. Archaeologists dated the blade to around 1200 years old, a single-edged type already described in a book from 1919, right at the hinge between the pre-Viking era and the dawn of the Viking Age. The field had been ploughed for years, crossed by tractors and harvesters, yet it took a first-grader hunting for a stone to surface a blade that old. In Denmark, a sword turned up bent on purpose. Klaus Felsby had just bought a metal detector, spring of 2024, his very first outing. Walking a mast near Copenhagen, the device screamed almost immediately. He dug up a bronze sword bent into an S shape, deliberately, not from any blow. Archaeologists explained it through Bronze Age ritual, roughly 2500 years old. People back then would bend or break a weapon before offering it to water or Mars as a sacrifice to unseen forces. Days later, exactly 70 meters away, he found an exquisitely crafted bronze necklace. A beginner's first outing, and he stumbled onto 2 offerings at once. The Netherlands gave up a sword to men who weren't even looking for antiquities. March 2024, a farm near Montfort. Workers dredging a small river pull up a bucket that isn't just mud. Inside the clay is an iron blade over a meter long, dated between 1150 and 1150, between 1050 and 1150. The oxygen-free clay preserved it so well that restorers were stunned. Even the wooden hilt and grip remnants survived. Copper inlay decorated both faces, a sun-like cross on one side, an old Scandinavian diamond knot symbol on the other, meaning an unbreakable bond. No scabbard was found with it, and among Germanic peoples that mattered, a lost weapon isn't misplaced, it's deliberately given to the water. A farewell, not an accident. Then the scale jumps sharply. Staffordshire, England, not one sword, but over 4,500 objects at once, found with an ordinary metal detector on a ploughed field. It became the largest hoard of Anglo-Saxon gold ever found in England, around 4,600 pieces, 7th century, the Kingdom of Mercia, right in the so-called Dark Ages. Except the craftsmanship proved anyone wrong who thought nothing sophisticated happened then. Officials valued it at roughly £3.3 million, though for a find like this, price is almost beside the point. This is a lost war culture in fragments. Not one complete sword, only broken parts, deliberately dismantled before burial. Halfway across the world, an 11-year-old boy in China's Jiangsu province was simply washing his hands in a river when his fingers hit something hard and metallic. Specialists later dated the blade to over 3,000 years old, one of the oldest swords ever found in China, from the very dawn of Chinese bronze weaponry, an era known there mostly from textbooks. Back to Scandinavia, where a legendary blade type turned up under a farmer's boot. Southwest Norway, a small place called Suldal. A local farmer and ferry engineer noticed something in his field that clearly wasn't ordinary debris: Viking Age iron, roughly 800 to 1066, preserved by thick clay that had cut off oxygen. Under corrosion, faint letters emerged in imaging: Ulfberht, the legendary maker's mark of early medieval swords, forged with steel quality that outpaced its century. Of roughly 3,000 Viking Age swords found in Norway, only about 20 carry this mark. Poland delivered a sword straight from a riverbed. Włocławek, early 2024, workers dredging the Vistula near the harbor. One of them, Slavomir Mulashi, spotted an odd shape in the mud pile, corroded, but unmistakably a sword. He reported it immediately. Dated to the 10th century, it too carried the Ulfberht mark under the rust, the ninth such sword found in all of Poland, right at the moment the earliest Piast state was forming. Then Ukraine, where a fisherman's hook, not a detector, snagged history. November 2011, near Khotitsia Island on the Dnieper. A routine cast turns heavy. Up comes a sword nearly a meter long, gold, silver, and copper decoration on the hilt, from 22 meters down. The spot sat almost exactly where legend places the death of Prince Sviatoslav in battle in the year 972. Scholars can't prove ownership, but the type, place, and age keep the theory alive. The fisherman refused a $40,000 private offer and handed it to a museum instead. The Netherlands again, this time a hilt shaped with wild boar heads, a Frisian field, 10th century, boars symbolizing courage and protection in Viking culture, and proof Frisia was tied directly into the wider Viking world. England again, a 6th century warrior's grave on a hill above the Thames, found by hobbyist detectorists, forced historians to redraw the political map of southern Britain, since the area was assumed to have been a quiet backwater. Poland once more, this time drought instead of machinery. The Vistula's water dropped so low in the summer of 2025 that a passerby simply spotted a blade in the exposed mud, medieval, cross-hilted, one of the rare real finds among countless false alarms. In Israel, an underwater archaeologist chasing off suspected looters found a Crusader-era blade himself in the sand, and years later, nearby, a second one. Another Polish hobbyist, expecting only bottle caps and beer cans that morning, instead unearthed a Bronze Age sword 900 years before Christ, preserved by its own thick patina. And a Kent grave near Canterbury delivered the most beautiful and unsettling blade of all: silver and gold hilt, runic symbols, a nearly intact scabbard lined with beaver fur. Under the microscope, researchers found fly larvae traces on the blade, proof the body lay exposed for a time before burial, perhaps so loved ones could say goodbye. Only 12 of over 200 graves in that cemetery have been studied so far. 16 blades, 16 random hands that pulled them into the light: a farmer, a child, a worker, a diver, a fisherman, a hobbyist. The earth and the water keep these things for centuries without hurry, and hand them over only when they decide to, not when we ask.